Hello and welcome to Workers Comp Unwrapped, the podcast that simplifies workers' compensation for physicians. I'm your host, Max, here to give you clear, actionable insights to navigate the medical legal side of workers' comp. So let's get started. Welcome to Season 2 of Workers Comp Unwrapped with Max Meet Aisha, who has 15 years of experience in the workers' comp industry. Today, we're talking about
Explore employer's role.
Explore employers' role in initiating workers' comp claims, avoiding common mistakes, and adhering to state-mandated timelines. We're going to break this down specifically for doctors in California who want to understand the employer's perspective and, let's be honest, maximize their revenue.
That's right. It's all about understanding the critical role employers play in this whole process and how even small missteps on their part can have a big impact on a doctor's ability to treat patients effectively and get paid on time.
Okay, so we all know workers' comp is mandatory here in California, but it's more than just having a policy in place, right? It's a whole system with a ton of regulations and timelines that employers need to navigate.
Absolutely. And one of the most important things for doctors to understand is that employers are the first line of defense when a workplace injury occurs. They're responsible for taking immediate action, which sets the stage for the entire claims process.
So for our doctor listeners, what's the most crucial thing they need to know about the employer's role?
Well, think of it this way. The employer is the gatekeeper. They're the ones who initially report the injury, provide the injured worker with the necessary forms and information, and ultimately submit the claim to the insurance carrier. Any delay or mistake on their end can create a domino effect, leading to delays in treatment authorization payments and even disputes down the road.
It sounds like those dreaded delays that doctors often face can sometimes be traced back to the employer's actions.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for doctors to have a clear understanding of what employers are supposed to do, what timelines they need to meet, and what common mistakes they should avoid.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty then. What are the specific steps an employer needs to take when an employee gets injured on the job?
The very first thing is to ensure the employee's safety. That's paramount. If it's a serious injury, call 911 immediately. But even for seemingly minor injuries, the employer needs to arrange for prompt medical care, whether it's through their designated medical provider network or by providing first aid.
Got it. Safety first. Then what?
While all of that's happening, the employer needs to start documenting everything. I mean, everything. The details of the injury, when and where it happened, what the employee was doing at the time, any witnesses, and even photos if appropriate. Accurate and detailed documentation from the get-go is crucial.
I bet doctors are nodding their heads in agreement right now. We all know how important good documentation is.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets really important for doctors. California law requires employers to provide the injured worker with a specific form called the DWC-1 within 1 working day of learning about the injury.
1 day. That seems incredibly fast.
It is. And that's why it's so important for employers to have systems in place to ensure this happens without fail. This form, known as the Employee's Claim for Workers' Compensation Benefits, is essentially the official notice of injury and the start of the entire claims process.
So this DWC-1 form is kind of a big deal. What exactly does it include?
It basically lays out the details of the injury, the employee's job, and crucially, their rights and benefits under California law. Both the employee and the employer have to fill out parts of it.
Okay, so let's say the employee fills out their section and returns it to the employer. What happens then?
Then the pressure is really on. The employer has to complete their portion of the DWC-1, gather any additional information about the injury and the initial treatment provided, and submit the whole thing to their insurance carrier.
And how much time do they have to do all of that?
5 days. Not a lot of wiggle room there.
So doctors listening, this is a key takeaway. If your patient comes in with a work-related injury and they haven't received that DWC-1 form from their employer within a day or two, that's a huge red flag. It could mean delays down the line for you.
You're absolutely right. It's a sign that the employer might not be on top of things, which could create headaches for everyone involved, especially the doctor trying to provide timely and effective treatment.
So the clock is ticking from the moment an injury happens. The employer is in the hot seat, and their actions or inactions have a direct impact on how smoothly the entire claims process unfolds. It's like a chain reaction.
Precisely. And that's why understanding the employer's responsibilities and those critical timelines is so crucial for doctors. It's not just about legal compliance. It's about ensuring your patients get the care they need and that you get fairly compensated for your services.
Okay, so we've covered the initial steps and the importance of that DWC-1 form. But what happens next? What's the employer's role once the claim is submitted to the insurance carrier?
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Once that claim is submitted, the employer's job isn't over. They still have a critical role to play in ensuring things move forward smoothly.
I imagine communication is key at this point.
You nailed it. The employer becomes the liaison between the injured worker, the insurance company, and of course the treating doctor. They need to be responsive to requests for information, provide updates on the employee's status, and basically keep the lines of communication open.
So any hiccups in communication from the employer can really throw a wrench in the works.
Absolutely. Let's say the insurance company needs clarification on the employee's job duties or the circumstances surrounding the injury. If the employer drags their feet in responding, it can cause delays in everything from treatment authorization to the final determination of the claim.
And those delays can end up costing everyone time and money, including the doctor.
Exactly. A delayed claim can mean a delayed payment for the doctor. And sometimes those delays can ripple out even further. Imagine a scenario where a doctor is waiting on authorization to perform a specific procedure. That delay could push back the entire treatment plan, potentially impacting the patient's recovery time and ultimately leading to higher medical costs for the employer and the insurer.
Wow, so it really is a delicate ecosystem. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the common mistakes employers make that can trip things up. I'm sure our doctor listeners have encountered their fair share of these.
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest pitfalls is underestimating the importance of that DWC-1 form, especially when they think the injury is minor.
I guess some employers might figure, it's just a sprained ankle, why all the fuss?
Right. But that kind of thinking can really backfire. California law is clear that DWC-1 needs to be provided within 1 working day, regardless of the severity of the injury.
So doctors, if your patient mentions a work-related injury but doesn't have that DWC-1 form, that should raise a red flag.
Absolutely. It could be a sign that the employer isn't taking the claim seriously or doesn't understand the proper procedures. Either way, it's likely to cause problems down the road.
What other landmines should doctors be aware of?
Another common mistake is incomplete or inaccurate documentation. Sometimes employers rush through the paperwork or leave out crucial details about the injury or the initial treatment provided. This can make it much harder for the insurance company to assess the claim properly, potentially leading to delays or even denials.
And I imagine those kinds of errors can be incredibly frustrating for doctors who are just trying to do their job and help their patients.
You're right. Doctors rely on accurate and complete information from the employer to make informed decisions about their patient's treatment. Missing or inaccurate information can force them to chase down details, potentially delaying necessary care.
So clear and thorough documentation from the start is really in everyone's best interest.
Absolutely. It's all about setting the stage for a smooth and efficient claims process. And speaking of efficiency, another area where things can go wrong is communication.
You mean like a breakdown in communication between the employer and the doctor?
Exactly. Sometimes employers don't keep doctors in the loop about the status of the claim or fail to provide timely updates on the employee's work restrictions. This can lead to confusion, delays in treatment, and even potential liability issues for the doctor.
So how can doctors and employers avoid these communication breakdowns?
Open and proactive communication is key. Doctors should feel comfortable reaching out to the employer to clarify information request updates and ensure everyone is on the same page. And employers should make it a priority to keep doctors informed throughout the entire claims process.
It sounds like establishing a strong working relationship between the doctor and the employer is crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When there's mutual respect, trust, and open communication, the whole process runs much smoother. Everyone benefits, especially the injured worker.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the common pitfalls. Now let's focus on the positive. What are some best practices employers can implement to make this whole workers' comp thing less of a headache for everyone involved?
Well, first and foremost, employers need to invest in training for their staff, especially those who are likely to be the first point of contact when an injury occurs.
Makes sense. If those folks are well-versed in California's workers' comp requirements, they'll be much better equipped to handle things correctly from the get-go.
Right. Another best practice is to have clear written policies and procedures for dealing with workplace injuries. This takes the guesswork out of the equation and ensures consistency in how these situations are managed.
So basically having a roadmap that everyone can follow.
Exactly. And in today's digital age, employers should be taking advantage of technology. There are some great claims management software programs out there that can help them track deadlines, document communications, and stay organized.
I bet those tools can be lifesavers when it comes to meeting those tight deadlines.
Oh, absolutely. But beyond the practical stuff, one of the most important things employers can do is create a culture of safety and communication in the workplace.
Okay, that sounds a bit touchy-feely.
Oh.
How does that play into the workers' comp process?
It's about fostering an environment where employees feel comfortable reporting injuries, asking questions, and participating in their recovery. When employees trust their employer and feel supported, they're less likely to dispute a claim or drag things out.
And that can save everyone a lot of time, money, and stress in the long run.
Exactly. It's a win-win for all parties involved.
So it seems like building strong relationships is key here.
You're absolutely right. When employers, doctors, and insurance carriers work together collaboratively, the entire workers' comp system functions more efficiently and effectively.
And ultimately, that's what it's all about. Ensuring injured workers receive the care they need, doctors get paid fairly, and employers can focus on getting their employees back to work safely and productively.
That's the ideal scenario, and it's definitely achievable when everyone understands their roles and responsibilities.
Speaking of real-world examples, do you have any case studies that illustrate how these best practices can make a tangible difference?
I do. I remember working with a construction company here in California that was having a lot of trouble with their workers' comp claims. They were constantly getting hit with fines for late submissions, the paperwork was a mess, and their employees were frustrated with the delays.
It's like a nightmare scenario. What did they do to turn things around?
They realized they needed to make some major changes. They invested in training for their supervisors, adopted a user-friendly claims management software, and created a clear step-by-step guide for handling workers' comp claims.
So they got organized and brought everyone up to speed. Did it work?
It did. Within a year, they saw a dramatic improvement. They had 0 missed deadlines, claims were being resolved much faster, and employee morale went way up.
That's incredible. It's amazing what a difference those seemingly simple changes can make.
It really is. And the best part is, these best practices aren't just beneficial for employers, they also make life a lot easier for doctors who are treating injured workers.
So what are some key takeaways that our doctor listeners can use to improve their own experiences with workers' comp?
It sounds like knowledge really is power when it comes to workers' comp. You know, the more doctors understand the employer's role and responsibilities, the better prepared they'll be to avoid those potential pitfalls and ensure a smoother process for everyone.
Precisely. Doctors should be on the lookout for those red flags we talked about, like delays in receiving the DWC-1 form, incomplete or inaccurate documentation, or a lack of communication from the employer. Don't hesitate to ask questions and advocate for your patients and for yourself.
So being proactive is key.
Absolutely. And here's a thought-provoking question for our doctor listeners. How can you proactively advocate for best practices within your local employer networks?
Oh, that's interesting. Could you offer educational sessions or resources to help employers understand their responsibilities and create a more efficient system for everyone?
That's a great idea. Doctors are in a unique position to influence the workers' comp system and make it work better for all parties involved.
Exactly. By sharing your knowledge and expertise, you can help create a more streamlined and beneficial experience for employers, injured workers, and of course for yourselves.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into the world of workers' comp from the employer's perspective. I'm sure our doctor listeners are walking away with a much clearer understanding of how to navigate this complex system and protect their own interests.
I hope so. Remember, knowledge is power, and when it comes to workers' comp, the more you know, the better off you'll be.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on Workers Comp Unwrapped.
The pleasure was all mine. I always enjoy talking about workers' comp, and I hope this information has been valuable for your listeners.
And to all our listeners out there, if you have any questions or insights about workers' comp that you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love hearing from you and learning from your experiences.
And who knows, your question might just inspire a future episode of Workers Comp Unwrapped.
That's right. So keep those questions coming. Until next time, stay informed, stay compliant, and stay profitable. Thank you for listening to Workers' Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, share it with your fellow medical providers and healthcare specialists. For more information, contact us at lena.klein@medicallienmgt.com or visit our website, medicallienmgt.com.